and welcome to the first chapter reading on my Author channel. I'm going to be doing some chapter readings of my debut novel, my Christian and women's fiction debut novel, Eva's Promise. But before I get into the chapter readings, I'm just going to go over and read the blurb just so others really know what this book is actually about. It's the easiest way for me to explain it all. She prayed their marriage would survive. Wedding bells rang 7 years ago. Then tragedy struck. 33-year-old Eva Rose Lucas has the perfect home, a good husband, and an enduring little boy, but her married life quickly changes when her husband Andre gets into a terrible car accident and suffers a severe brain injury. Now, her once hardworking, self-reliant husband is a disabled, touchy handicap. He doesn't remember her and cannot move his limbs. Stress and resentment build up on Eva's shoulders as she helps take care of her husband, their son, and her students at Sunrise Christian Daycare. Her family's finances shrink, the emotional strain becomes too much, and Eva prays for a miracle. Months pass, but Andre makes little improvement, and after attending her class reunion for a chance break, her old high school crush, Caleb Williams, challenges her love and commitment to God and her husband. Will Eva remain faithful toward them, or will she forsake her most precious vows? And that is the blurb that's on the back of the book. I'm going to be reading chapters 3 and 11, which are both in Andre's point of view, the husband character. This story, even though it's called Eva's Promise, it's written in 2 points of view. It's written in Eva's point of view and Andre's point of view, her husband, in the story. But I'm going to start off with chapter 3, which is when Andre gets into his car accident. And then I am going to read chapter 11, which is when Andre wakes up from his coma in the hospital. I really thought that it would be interesting to actually write Andre's recovery, and particularly when he first wakes up from his coma, which is why I added the chapter 11 into the book, because originally it was not in the story. There's a couple other chapters that wasn't originally in the story when it was first called With You Forever, before I changed it to Eva's Promise. But I just thought that would be interesting to write a scene of him from his perspective of him coming out of his coma. Andre barged through the swing exit door of Pet Friend's veterinary clinic and felt a drizzle tap his forehead. Thunder crackled and rolled in the distance. He paused in his tracks and frowned at the sky. Giant thick clouds smothered the fiery sunset, casting a shadowy gloom over the wide parking lot. A thunderstorm? Though a 40% chance was in effect, the weatherman was wrong this time. Andre took a long breath of the damp, earthy air. His heart skipped a beat. He had to get to the restaurant before it rained. He left his umbrella home, and the last thing he wanted was to arrive with his navy tuxedo soaked, not to mention double pneumonia. Andre jogged toward his 2017 blue velvet Chevy Impala and unlocked the doors with his keychain remote. He plopped in the driver's seat and shut the door. Andre let out a sigh, slipped his cell phone out of his hip holster and placed it in the car holder clipped to an air vent. More thunder clashed, startling him as he pressed the 6-speed engine button. Lightning flashed twice behind the monstrous clouds, giving a quick illusion of a bright summer morning. Andre buckled his seatbelt and glanced at the clock on the panel screen of his car. 6:43 p.m. Time was always a key factor, wondering and questioning if he trusted God enough to have another child. Would he finally take a leap of faith? He couldn't disappoint his wife again, and he wouldn't. He hadn't told her all his romantic plans for them, but after dinner she would find out in the hotel suite he booked for them. There were 7 minutes to spare. Maybe he wouldn't be late. Andre shifted the gear stick in reverse, speeding out the parking space. But he was too late. Steady rain pitter-pattered on the windshield and sunroof of his car, blurring his view. Andre turned on the wipers and stared hopelessly, clutching the steering wheel. Ever since he got his license at 18, he never liked driving in the rain, but within seconds the dry road across from him became a slick black stream. Please, God, not again. From his wedding anniversary to his son's baby milestones, his number of tardies was ridiculous. He hoped Eva and Andrew knew how much he loved them and how important they were to him. Andre bit his lip and shifted into drive, cruising down the sloped paved entrance to the clinic. He glanced up Lime Street, his attention caught by a long line of several cars and blowing horns. Traffic was jam-packed. Just great. Andre gritted his teeth. With the weather against him and traffic crowded, going the longer route was the only option. He turned onto Kono Highway, taking a backcountry road. He rode past his grandfather's farmhouse and nearby cornfields. As he made a sharp, smooth turn onto pasture road, he flicked on his high beams to better see the flooded street. Andre drove by a yellow deer sign in the old Thomas family's place, the rugged remains of a small wooden shack. 50 years ago it caught fire after a lightning bolt struck the Worcester wind vane during a thunderstorm. Its roof had collapsed from the burning flames, but the ancient house was still standing despite the tragic disaster. Andre's mobile phone in the holder vibrated. He stole a glance at his cell while stirring his wheel. Eva sent a text message. Please hurry, I'm hungry. Waiting at the Redfish Grill. Andre replied via Bluetooth, keeping his hand on the wheel. On my way. Love you. He peeked at the clock. 5 minutes to 7. Andre's smile dropped as he looked up from his phone again. In the burst of lightning, a deer leaped in front of his vehicle in the middle of the street. He gasped and stumped on his brake, his heart pounding against his ribcage. His tires squealed, sliding into the white-tailed animal. Ah! Andre closed his eyes tightly, gripped the wheel, and braced himself for the collision. There was a hefty thump of an impact. The deer smashed through the windshield and knocked Andre in his head. Shattered glass flew inside the car's interior. He slumped over in his seat and lost control of the wheel. The car swerved and scraped against the metal guardrail. Sparks sputtered from the railing as the car screeched off the road and crashed into a neighbor's front yard tree. Thick gray smoke spewed from the crushed car like carbonated fizz down a shaken-up soda can. Andre's eyes were open, nothing more than slits. His vision blurred at the lifeless touchscreen between the front air vents. Andre's body was stiff and ached with excruciating pain, leaning against the passenger seat. He squirmed and attempted to straighten himself, but the deer's weight on his lap pinned him down. Andre went and exhaled shallow breaths in a panic. He reached a cut bleeding hand to his crown and felt a deep gash on his head. Andre steadied his hand and nearly faded from the sight of his blood. Help! Somebody! Help me! He said breathlessly. No one could hear him. Except for the thunder and rain pelting his car, he heard nothing. It seemed all hope was lost. After waiting for what felt like infinity, someone knocked and shined a flashlight on his face inside the car. Hold on, sir. We're going to get you out, a policeman said, his voice muffled against the passenger window. The officer spoke to his colleagues and walked off from the car wreckage. Fire truck and ambulance sirens rang and approached the accident scene. Motor equipment zoomed off. A metal bent and broke apart as personnel firefighters rescued him. Breathing heavily, Andre moaned and fluttered his eyes at the bright lights of the emergency vehicles, raising his bloody hand to his face. In an instant, his whole life flashed before him. His drug-addict parents arguing over him in their run-down apartment. His 5-year-old self playing on the tire swing at his grandpa's farm. His school and college graduations. He and Eva's first kiss on their wedding day and flight to Mexico. And Andrew's birth when he first held his son. Tears fell from the corners of his eyes, silently mouthing his lips. Words had become harder to grasp. He was a fish without water. He wanted to speak again, to call for help, his thoughts and memories slipping away like sand flowing through an hourglass. But as gentle as wind, darkness settled in, and will remain for weeks. And that is the end of chapter 3 of my novel, Eva's Promise. And it just shows how at the end that is exactly when Andre slips into his coma after his eyes close and he sees nothing but darkness. But that is the end of chapter 3. Now I'm going to go over and read chapter 11 when he first wakes up from his coma in the hospital. Andre, chapter 11. His heavy-lidded brown eyes fluttered and stared at the African-American man wearing glasses and a long white coat, and the young woman in a red gown beside him. Their faces were close to his, stretched with enthusiastic smiles as if fascinated by his existence. Why are they looking at me? Where am I? What happened to me? His whole body was numb, feeling nothing except the turning of his neck and the motions of his face. Andre inhaled deeply and felt cool air seep through the back of his throat. Before the lady in red came, the man in the coat removed a strange, uncomfortable tube that punctured his neck. He glanced downward and found his wrists tied to the side metal railing of the bed. His heart raced, panicking. Why am I tied up? What did they do to me? The man in white asked him a question and pointed at his tongue to ensure Andre understood him. Exhaling wheezy breaths, Andre mimicked the man's demonstration, pointing out or sticking out his tongue too. The man and the young woman exchanged smiles, thrilled by his physical response. At the foot of the hospital bed was another woman with a jet black ponytail and blue clothes, recording notes in a binder. She glanced up from her notebook with a smile, and he tried to smile back. The young woman in a red gown with white splotches on it moved closer to his bedside, looking over him. Awe transformed Andre's face as he studied her. His lower lip drooped, slowly breathing. Who are you? He hadn't seen many people since he first opened his eyes, but she was the most gorgeous person he saw, like looking at night and day simultaneously. Her long wavy hair was black as shadows, her olive face bright and beautiful like the shining sun. Her pretty, straight smile helped him remain calm with his medical condition, ensuring him everything would be okay. As the man in glasses had, she said something to him, offering a kind greeting, grateful he's awakened. Andre moaned and faltered, speaking in a slow, monotone drawl. Who are you? The woman in red frowned, and he got the impression he was mistaken. She shook her head and spoke again, informing him who he and she was. Andre, Eva, wife. What's a wife? The woman searched his eyes and talked to him again, asking if he knew her. Remembering her was as hard as solving a Rubik's Cube blindfolded. Did they know each other? Had he seen her before? Andre sighed and wore another blank stare, unable to answer her confidently. Her face fell, and she fled away from him, the doctor chasing after her. Wait, come back. Where are you going? His cloudy eyes followed them as they exited the room. Fear gripped hold of him. He wanted her to stay by his bedside, but within, he'd gotten an eerie sense he made a terrible mistake, an unpleasant incident to her and himself, forgetting who she was. And that was chapter 11, after Andre woke from his coma, and based on his reaction to everyone around him and whatnot, it's obvious that he has lost his memory, which is also mentioned as before in chapter 3, before he actually slips into his comatose state. But that is all that I have for this video. If you're interested in purchasing a copy of Eva's Promise, I'll have the links below. I am planning to do some chapters from Eva's point of view. I don't know which chapters I'm going to choose as of yet, but that is all that I have for this video. Eva's Promise is available in ebook, paperback, and hardback, but I know obviously most people is probably going to get the paperback or the ebook, being that the hardback is kind of steep. But if you're interested in getting a copy, I'll have all the links below for Eva's Promise. And thank you for watching, and stay tuned for some chapters from Eva's point of view, which is actually, of course, the main character in this debut novel, Eva's Promise. But I hope you enjoyed the reading, and even though I'm not always the best at that kind of stuff, but that's all I have for this video, and thank you for watching.